Hey everybody, it's Ed Thompson. I'm with Single Purpose Ministries here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Welcome to my apartment. I'm standing today to let you in. I would love to hear some of the stories that are coming out of the e-blast, i.e. part of the presentation today is written and you read it before you come to this video portion. What would you have read this morning? You would have read about relationships with your dogs from past and present and all the good memories and just the warm feelings of loving an animal that loved you back, probably even more. So as important as that subject is, and I love dogs, we are going to turn away into the video and talk just about human beings and a great God who helps us form relationships. So that's where we're heading. And let me just start by saying that we are going to set some pillars. Just imagine we're going to build a foundation. So the pillars, and then we'll put the foundation up on top and we'll build. And we start with these pillars. They each have a word associated with them that practically help us relate. See what I mean here? They all start with L, and we're not going to get to all of them today, but we are going to get to 3, and here we go. Life is the first pillar we're going to put in today. What about life? How can you have relationships with having some sort of life? If you are just dead to everything, how can you add life to your relationships? Well, let's look. A couple examples you can hook into. There was a movie many years ago now called The Shawshank Redemption. It was a movie about a prison named Shawshank and had 2 men amongst many prisoners. These 2 prisoners became friends. One was Andy, the other man, Red. Red had been there so long, he was so old, and he heard Andy say, "This is what is going to happen when I finally get released." And he shared a dream with Red of getting out and getting on with life. Red could not go there, figuratively speaking. He was too afraid to leave the walls. He'd been imprisoned too long. So he thought of just dying in the prison. It brought the question up that Andy asked Red, "You better get busy living or you better get busy dying. What's it going to be?" And posing that question to Red brought Red around in the movie to a growth that we like to see in everybody. Watch the movie, you'll see what I mean. Another life hook that we're hooking into today is when the Dalai Lama, a very revered monk or holy man from India, and he talks about the Buddhism and maybe Hinduism, but his simple quote that the purpose of life is happiness. And you say, oh man, that does sound simple. And yet, how many of us Americans have lived by that and lived by that only for so many years? Granted, everybody, human beings, want to be happy. So all over the world, that's their purpose. But I just think of Americans that get lost in owning, controlling, living in such a way that they just do not think about the hereafter. Well, here's a verse before we go to the next L. This verse is from the New Testament of the Bible. Jesus asked, "For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul?" Taking a breath on that, gaining the whole world, I'm sure that man's happy while he's there, but there's going to come a day, like all men do. They die and they meet the Creator. They forfeit their soul. Just think about that. It's pretty deep. L word, pillar number 2 on relationships. Learning. Are you a lifelong learner? Do you get up some mornings knowing that you want to learn something and you, with discipline and diligence, go after it? I hope so. One man says he loves to learn. He just doesn't like to be taught. Well, it takes diligence to be taught. And this man evidently just wants to learn as he goes. So that is really not one of the best concepts, and we are not going to adhere to that. Another man says, I'm always ready to learn. And any fool can know something. But the point is, does he understand? And so what we're talking about in relationships are relationships that understand one another, not just know about. A lot of friends on Facebook, that's the kind any fool can do. Excuse me, but I want deeper, more meaningful relationships to emerge in your life. And finally, let's go ahead with learning in Philippians, back to the New Testament in the Bible. The Apostle Paul basically says, not that I speak from want, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am. I know how to get along with humble means, and I also know how to live in prosperity. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of being filled and going hungry, both of having abundance and suffering need. Let me put the 13th verse in. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Now that right there could be a bedrock for a good relationship, to learn how to live beyond the circumstances and do it because you know Christ will strengthen you. I'd love to talk to the Dalai Lama about that. Number 3, besides life and learning, let's talk a little bit about laughing. You like to laugh. It's fun to have relationships where you laugh and you go to the coffee shop or you go to the ball game when you can, and all sorts of places. And sometimes just with your significant special person. To laugh together is a connecting experience and something that we yearn for. The people in the nursing homes and assisted living, they're yearning right now to have people come in, form relationships where they can laugh because they are bound and quarantined right now. Oh, that you and I could walk in with a basket of golden retriever puppies, hand one out to each of the people maybe they're in that big dining area that they're in. We wouldn't have to say much else. Laughter, smiles, and joy would erupt. And that's what Single Purpose would like to see. Places where joy, laughter, and relationships emerge and erupt. So, with that said, I'm just talking about a cheerful heart that does good, like medicine. But a crushed spirit dries up the bones. I want people to have a merry heart because they have merry relationships. And that comes from Proverbs 17:22. I also think about men who say, he who laughs last laughs best. Maybe, but that's not the kind of foundation we need to build on. And once again, we talk about the scarcity of laughter, and it brings about a scarcity of deep and meaningful one-on-one interaction. Boy, do I repeat myself? Yes, I do, because I am very intentional about seeing you get more of what you want. And some people don't even know that that's what they need. Now, I'm closing. I'm going to give you some of the L words that we're going to continue to set into the foundation. And one L word is to lead. L-E-A-D. Man, That's as big a word as any of the ones we've discussed already. How about link? Another 4-letter L word. Do you like when people connect with one another and you sometimes link them? You introduce them and they become great friends. Who knows? Maybe great husband and wife, and on and on. Next, looking. Looking is so important in relationships to see things that most people aren't looking for. To understand through seeing beyond the obvious. Ladies, you do that beautifully. And guys, I've seen some of you do it perfectly. Me, sometimes it's all about just looking and seeing, but it's so much more than that. We'll talk about it. Last but not least for now, listening. Kind of like looking. Are you just hearing, or do you really hear? Do you listen? Do you absorb? Do you understand? Just asking. These are words, relationally speaking, that you and I are going to look at. I hope you have a great week. I hope all is well in your world. And, Lord willing, I'll see you next week. Take care, folks.